everybody, welcome to this episode of May I Interrupt? I'm Craig Norman, and along with my co-host, Dr. Jason Jedlicka, we get the pleasure of being able to interview really fascinating and interesting people in the field of optometry. We hope to have one today, Dr. Kelly Olson, that will actually fill that bill for us. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Craig.
Yep.
And you?
Not too bad, thank you.
I'm actually quite excited for this episode because you've said some great things about Kelly, and I want to know more about this man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me start before I turn it over to you. I still remember meeting Kelly in Tahlequah. Do you remember this?
I do.
That was in Tahlequah at the optometry school giving a lecture. And of course, it helped that you were the biggest guy in the room, so that stood out.
But never the best looking.
Of course. Yeah. And you had scrubs on, right?
Yes.
When other people did not have scrubs on, so you stood out as well. Oh, I at least remember that. Anyways. And then, luckily for me, developed a friendship and relationship over that period of time that I'm very happy about. So let me start with, I called you Dr. Kelly Olson, but you have another moniker as well, and that is?
In the military, they call me Colonel.
Yeah.
Yes, so I've been in the military now for a total of 30 years. I started in field artillery as a young private at age 17.
Yeah.
Knew that wasn't going to last forever, and then went to optometry school following that experience.
Yeah. Same branch I was in, by the way.
Okay. Hey, good for you. How's your hearing?
I get a disability for it.
Right. We'll see how that goes for me.
Yeah. So what we're really fascinated about is you've had such a varied career, so we want to hone that down a little bit. But I know when we first met again, when you were finding a place for your residence.
Yes.
To be able to come to the GPLI meeting, and we got to know each other to try to make that happen. To me, it struck an interest in, I didn't even know there was this thing within the military where somebody was worried about specialty lenses, and it was all happening in San Antonio or near San Antonio. So can you tell us what is the experience of yours as managing a lot of these optometrists in different clinics in the U.S. first, and then the way I understand it, most recently in Europe as well. So how does that all work?
Right, so great question, and I'll kind of preface all that by saying it has been a tremendous privilege to be a part of a couple of communities. One is to be able to take care of our service members. What a blessing. But two is to be able to be a part of this specialty lens community. And I feel like it's family, right? So Craig and Ursula and the team welcomed me in right away. This has been 10 or 11 years ago now at BAMC, at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. During those war years in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was a great need to treat patients who had ocular deformities or had facial burns and scars and those kind of things. And there were a couple of optometrists who went before me and kind of laid that work for getting engaged with scleral lens fitting. But I jumped right into that early on with helping those burn and trauma patients, mostly with scleral lenses. And so we found that there were some great applications for helping people who had these things. I remember going into burn wards, and there were service members who had traumatic and really serious burns on their faces and much of their bodies. They were placed in medically induced comas, lying strapped down, getting skin grafts over much of their body, and many of them didn't have eyelids. And so it was our responsibility to do what we could to protect the corneas, protect the eyes. And so scleral lenses filled that role where we could put a viscous solution, put the scleral lens on top of that. We would rotate those morning and evening until that person was able to get some reconstructive surgery and other options.
You weren't too worried about making the perfect fit, right?
Not a perfect fit. And really, we were just using gels and ophthalmic ointments and just really resting that to keep that eye lubricated.
I was going to say it must have been a bit of a challenge to put it on that way rather than this way.
Yes.
Right.
But again, like you say, if you're filling it with a thick enough agent, which presumably this individual doesn't need to see at the moment. It doesn't matter. You could fill it with an ointment or something, and it would stay in there. So
Now,
it's
the real trick came in that when they began to come out of their comas some months later, and of course they wanted to see, and they were tied down, and usually their surgeons still didn't want them to sit up, and so we were challenged with how to keep a scleral lens on the eye with now a fluid so they could see. And one of the best things that we could do is create a fenestration, inject some solution into that opening, and provide that solution in that way.
What neat opportunities. I mean, unfortunate that they have to be done, but still such unique, have to troubleshoot and figure out ways that we just don't think about these things.
So was in San Antonio, was that the main source for doing those kind of fits, or were they done at other bases?
It was the military's #1 kind of referral center for all of the military. And again, it started with this idea that we needed to support the soldiers, but it grew from there with relationships with some of our scleral lens partners, where we were then taking retirees that had all kind of profound situations, graft versus host disease, Stephen Johnson's, some of those situations, and we were bringing them in and taking care of them as well.
Yeah.
Provided a great opportunity for residency training as well.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So besides this burn situation, can you remember a couple of really oddball kind of uses that you might have had to?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that come to mind. Beyond burns, just scars on the cornea. We had a person who had an explosion near the face and the cornea was severely scarred. And as I recall, best vision without any type of a correction was somewhere around 2200, kind of as they looked around the scar. And I recall them putting a scleral device on. We call them medical devices. They were able to be somewhere around 2040 to 2030, which was life-changing.
Yeah. Remember you told me at one time that you periodically got involved in studies while you were there as well. If I remember correctly, one was a topography study.
So yes, that brings us to an interesting point. So right there on the BAMC campus in San Antonio, there's the Center or the Institute of Surgical Research, the ISR, and they fund projects within the military, and they also, and other organizations, give grants to commercial and academic opportunities. So we were part of a study to help develop a topographer. Now that didn't come to market, but one of the things that would have been interesting about that is the idea that it could take a very wide scan of the scleral surfaces and then add some kind of an A-scan measurement to help simulate what the optical prescription might be. Didn't get that to market. There was another big study that we were involved with and that's had several papers published about using iodine in the treatment of simple adenoviral periconjunctivitis. So that was kind of fun to be a part of that there.
Right. So besides, what we chatted about right now, my understanding is you had some administrative role for other places across the U.S. as well, right?
So not as much in the U.S. per se. My last assignment, I was in Europe and stationed in the central part of Germany, and so did oversee some of the clinics that were in other countries. And during this time, as we've been involved with this situation with Ukraine and Russia, we've had a lot of soldiers going forward. So my mission changed then from being in an academic residency teaching position and being involved as a specialty lens fitter to really helping on the front lines and being part of basic care and providing lenses for soldiers forward deployed, basically.
Right. So if any of our viewers are budding optometrists,
yes,
how would it work if they had an interest in going into the military? Would they make that decision before optometry school and have some help through optometry school, or
it can happen at any point?
Does it happen the other way?
Yeah, so at any point. So I was so fortunate, so blessed to be able to get a scholarship through the military for 4 years of school, and those scholarships still exist. Sometimes there are more 1 year to the next, just depending on demand and need. But each of the three major branches of the military has scholarships to bring people into the military with some commitment. You can, second year, third year student could also apply for a scholarship. As well, there's loan repayment programs.
I was going to say, after the fact, you probably could get assistance even after
Absolutely.
the fact.
Yeah. And then within optometry, does every base have an optometrist or more than one? All those that have eye hospital or have hospitals.
So I would say that yes, most of the bases, not all, some of their small forward remote places that don't. One of my experiences was being in Iraq for a year, and I traveled up almost every other week or at least every third week to some little place way out, and we would have a portable optometry kit, a portable slit lamp. We would go out and treat eye injuries and make prescriptions for glasses, send those back to our lab at the home base, and then get the glasses back, hopefully within a few days, to those folks. So not every little place where we have soldiers has an optometrist, but we do try to rotate folks in and out.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if I ever shared with you, but early on in my career, I went to optician school. And after optician school, I worked for a company that had the contract with the military for optical shops.
Oh, wow.
And so they weren't PX optical shops. They were part of the system.
Okay.
And so I helped set one up at West Point, and I was at Fort Belvoir, Andrews Air Force Base, Tulsa.
Yeah, really cool.
And I spent a year like living on the road helping to set these things up.
Sure.
And it was actually great because it made me decide I wasn't going to do this with my life
Sure, fair.
at a young age. Right. And then ended up going back to school. But I still remember that experience as I was 22 years old or whatever it was at the time as being quite interesting.
Right.
As well. Yeah. So Jason, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I actually was curious because you talked about scleral lenses and what you were doing with those. What about other types of contact lenses that you have been used in the past or using to help those injured or, you know?
That's a great question. Yeah, thanks for asking that. So we did use a variety of soft hand-painted or printed lenses to help kind of provide cosmesis for a damaged iris and provide some better, functionality out of that eye if we could create an artificial pupil. So that was a very popular application of what we used as well. There has been some work, some research done, and some grants given to see what the future of these lenses may be as far as applications within the military. I sat and jotted down just a little list of what that might look like. And I just heard a talk this morning, Craig sat behind me, about the idea of tinted lenses helping with rehabilitation and comfort for patients with brain injury, which has been a huge issue. We know that during these war issues in Iraq, the war years, Iraq and Afghanistan, we had about 250,000 soldiers who had ocular injuries and many, many more with traumatic brain injuries.
250,000.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I would have never guessed. Yeah.
So Congress actually, at that time, at some point, maybe about 2009, mandated that there would be research, medical research, and they pushed money toward vision protection, restoration, rehabilitation. And so that money continues. I think there's some fun things on the horizon for our soldiers with regard to protection from lasers and other directed energy things that will be a part of the next battlefield. I think in performance enhancement might be important for some of these lenses and what that may do for our guys who do hard things late at night.
Yeah,
and
so
being able
kind of the course that we took today.
Absolutely.
It's in there.
Biometric sensors is getting some attention, and what that might look like in identifying problems in the health of our soldiers. Wound healing, putting a lens over the eye as a way to help stabilize the corneal surface, help with corneal regeneration. Can we add medications to that? And then finally, there are discussions and money going toward research with augmented reality systems, as we have so many folks that are getting involved with a lot of this high-tech kind of stuff.
Right.
We've done some of that already. So for example, in our attack helicopters, those pilots have a lens ocular that kind of slides down from their helmet, and there's information displayed there. And so one of my jobs for a number of years was to help those pilots get an ad that would allow them to see distance in one eye, but be able to focus up close in the other eye without getting completely sick.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Yeah, for sure.
So it does raise the question in my mind, because of your title of pilots. So what is fighter pilots, vision, contact lenses, how does that all work? Can you wear contact lenses? Does there have to be a special kind of contact lens?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing discussion. So typically in the Army, at least, and I'm speaking from an Army perspective right now, we would discourage contact lenses in any forward battle scene. Although I'll tell you this quick story. I remember I was in Iraq. A soldier who'd been on a convoy came in, and he had a high prescription. He had multiple lenses. So he had protective glasses, and then he had his regular spectacles, and that was at the time the best that the Army could do for protective lenses. And he said, I just couldn't do it. I'm a gunner on the top of a Humvee. I can't do this. So I need some. So he was wearing soft contact lenses, and I discouraged that. But he said, but hey, my life is on the line, and I can't have all these extra glasses. I've got to wear some contacts. Now, more to your question, I know that the Air Force at Dayton, Ohio has been doing some research about scleral lenses for fast jet pilots. And the idea is that, it costs about $1 million to train a pilot for one of those fast jets. It's a huge investment. And if later they develop an ectasia, keratoconus, that, we have to say, can we continue to have that person serve?
Right.
And so I think their initial studies have proven that there was no real adverse effects with having the lens move, corneal oxygenation, all of those kind of health issues. There'll be more work done in that area, I'm sure. But at least for now, that's something that's really interesting.
I mean, I think, we've all seen photos or heard cases of that individual who got hit in the eye by a nail gun, and it hit their scleral lens, and it broke their lens, but their eye was perfectly healthy.
Right.
And you talked about these people who had things explode and it scarred their corneas. And in a way, it's almost like, why shouldn't they wear scleral lenses as a protection for their eyes if they're going to be in combat?
Yeah, some great
so that's a possibility. The other possibility, too, then, is with these pilots, for example, and with the HOA correction technology we're evolving, you might actually be able to give these 2010. It might even be able to enhance their vision beyond their 2020 uncorrected.
What a great point. Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's the beauty of having the military. You take people who are put in uncommon situations, and you want to do everything you can for them, so you have to think outside the box. And when you find something that works for somebody, you then say, how do we apply this to the rest of the population that is not this way? And so many great discoveries come through, this situation where we have to come up with a solution, And so I think that's what's fascinating, is seeing what you guys might be developing or what you might be trying in a true effort to help somebody that most of us would feel like we can't do those sort of things because we worry about legal ramifications of doing something which is not approved. The thinking outside the box stuff is really fascinating.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. You bet. You're right.
So tell us that, you're moving soon from being colonel back to being doctor.
Yes.
Right? So when is that about to happen, and what is the next venture for you as
Sure. So after 30 years in the military, and I have absolutely loved my career. I've had great and diverse experiences. I can say without hesitation, though, my favorite opportunity, the most cherished part of my career, was working in the specialty lens arena and working with people who have all of these.
It wasn't being interviewed on May I Interrupt?
Second, right?
It's true. That has been the absolute joy of my career. And so as I retire, I will be joining an MD-OD practice, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this kind of work.
Yeah.
Where is that going to be?
Southern Utah.
Southern
Called
Utah.
Cedar City, Utah, yes.
Great.
Yes. Well, on behalf of both of us, we wish you all the luck there.
I appreciate it.
That you have a brand new adventure. It's going to be different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really very, very, very exciting. You're going to have to do a lot of computer work and electronic medical records and so on. And so because of that, we made sure that you have the May I Interrupt mouse pad that you can take with
you.
and that I'm sure that everybody in the new office will want one. Maybe we can supply some for Christmas.
Where can I get some more?
Oh, so you just talk to Jason.
All right,
He
Jason.
can make it happen through these guys.
Thank you.
But thank you very much for
It's a
this.
pleasure. Thank you so much, Craig.
And then, of course, because you'll be moving into practice, we know you'll have much more time for golf. So we've got a sleeve of May I Interrupt golf balls for you as well.
Oh, thanks so
as
much.
a thank you for being on our show today.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thanks, Jason.
You betcha.
Kelly, thanks,
Great.
man.
It's a
Really, really
pleasure.
appreciate
Thanks so
it.
much.
Thank you so much. And thank all of you that are watching and listening to this episode of May I Interrupt. We really extremely appreciate your loyalty of continuing to watch the show. Stay tuned. Our new episode, will be out soon. Thanks, everybody.